Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast, bringing up the octave a little bit. Hello, Saul Bookman. How are you doing?
Good, Mike Luke. How are you doing?
Very much. By the way, what does this shirt say? Fill us in. What is this?
You can read.
I know. Well, half of it. It's Waffle House, not North Korea. Quoting the great Anthony Totri. I very much like this. Very good.
I have quoted shirts that I have made and printed for just about every single person in this office who has said some off the wall shit.
Can we get can we get one of these on the PHNX locker, perhaps?
No, absolutely not.
All right. It doesn't go that far then.
No.
Fair enough. Okay, we got a lot to get to this show. We're going to talk Arizona football. We're going to talk recruiting. We're going to talk the power forward position and a little bit of the unique situation going on there. But first, Saul, Arizona has a couple nice commitments, that especially from Texas. We're going to get to the highlights here in a second. But Saul, I'm all for getting into Texas. You're going into the Big 12. I'm all for Texas.
I love talking about Texas football recruiting because it always takes me back to the days when I was at the Daily Wildcat. Justin Spears and I are sitting there and we're talking about how thin the defensive and offensive lines are. And I'm like, how come Rich Rod doesn't recruit Texas? He goes, I don't know. I was like, let's ask him at the next presser, which was like only in about an hour. And so we went in there and sure enough, Justin was like, so how come you don't recruit Texas? And Rich Rod got a little salty. He was just like, why? Because everything's bigger in Texas?
Everything bigger in Texas?
And then the very next week, what did they do? They went to Texas and started to recruit because that's where all the big boys are.
I also give you guys a lot of credit because then he hired Theron H after that as well as an assistant coach, thinking to himself that's probably a pretty good situation. So very much appreciate that. But we will Texas though. It makes sense though, Saul. Joking aside, it makes total sense. You're in the Big 12 now. You're at Texas. You're going to be playing in front of Texas Tech. You got Houston. Why in the world? Oklahoma State's right up there. Why in the world wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense why you would avoid that. Basically the biggest state in the northern United States. Like, you got to attack Texas. Texas has got a bunch of big dogs. Arizona's always been well suited to attack the two biggest states in the country, into California and Texas, with the Florida near third. I don't quote me on that. I don't know if Florida is bigger or smaller than California, but anyway, they should be recruiting Texas. There's a lot of big dogs out here, and these two recruits share something very, very close to what I think Brent Brennan is really going to focus on, is guys that will come in here. They will be a little bit of a developmental project at first, but their upside could be huge if developed right.
I thought Jedd Fisch was very smart when he said, listen, we're going to get a lot of 3-star kids here, but we're going to get big 3-star kids. We're going to get fast 3-star kids. We're going to get the kids that if they miss, guess what? We're not missing because we have Parker Zellers at our defensive tackle. He didn't say that part, but you know what he's getting at there. He was going to miss with big players, and that's what he did. I mean, you look at it, within 2 years, that entire team, that entire line had been metamorphosized, and it was something that I think was pretty impressive to be able to see just how he's able to do it, Saul.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we start talking about these guys?
Let's start talking about him. Okay, now why don't we talk about Wesley Yarborough first? Now, this is the highest rated kid, the highest rated high school kid of the. If we've got the highlights there, that would be awesome. Okay, kid out of Steele, Texas. This is a big time player. He was the one that Alonzo Carter prioritized from day one in this class. 5'10", 195, had offers from Oklahoma State. ASU was in there as well, and Texas Tech. This is the guy that Alonzo Carter wanted. They felt very good about getting him, and he fits that template that they want at about 5'10", he could probably be about 210, 215. Guys, there's a lot to like about this young man.
Well, the cool thing about him is like, I think maybe in this next clip, you're going to see his lateral quickness, which is just off the charts. And usually guys that have lateral quickness, they can make a guy miss or two, right? But his lateral quickness is so explosive that he actually creates a lot of separation. His top end speed isn't quite where it will ultimately be, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, that lateral quickness. Mm-hmm. He's a phenomenal player. I could definitely see him growing into his body. By the time he gets on campus, I'd be shocked if he wasn't, pushing 225, 230 with some, I mean, look, the kid is built already, and he's about to go into his senior year. So he's a good prospect, man. And he can do a little bit of everything. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, like you saw in the second highlight. He can run the ball. He's got quickness. He's got a little bit of speed. He's just going to get better and better as we go.
Brad, they've done a pretty nice job of filling out this running back room.
Absolutely. When you look at the transfers, when you look at the young running backs, holding on to Speedy Luke, it's a good running back. Could be a very good to great running back room. Then you add a kid like this who's versatile. I mean, he's big enough to break tackles, but he's not a power back. He's fast enough to get some separation, but he's not a speed back. He's a little bit of everything, and if he can be a B plus on a lot of things, that makes him kind of an A player all around.
Yeah, and what Alonzo Carter has said from day one, ace recruiter, we're going to get back to her in a second, is that he wants to have a backfield by committee, kind of what Arizona did last year, guys. I mean, you look at it. Everybody talks about Jonah Coleman, and rightfully so, but you had Michael Wiley. You had DJ Williams in there as well, and now you're going to have something where you're going to have Quali Conley, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, and Fam Rayshon, Speedy Luke, but then you start looking towards the next year as well. You got Riscano, obviously coming in, ex-4-star kid. You're going to have Fam. You're going to have this kid in as well. There's going to be a nice little stable of backs here. And Alonzo Carter, as long as he's here, is going to be he's going to be pretty good. Very excited about it.
Not only that, but he's also proven that he can out-recruit some of the Big 12 teams in their own backyard. I mean, he just took this kid, and he had offers from Oklahoma State, Houston, Texas, or I'm sorry, TCU. So a lot of good schools out there, right there. Easily accessible, and he yanked him right from there. So you got to love what Alonzo Carter is trying to build, and the kind of reputation he's starting to build for himself in Texas as well. That's going to bode well for us.
All right, now let's talk, Brad. We got Sean Robinson coming up here in just a second. So let's talk. We got some footage of him as well. By the way, I was telling U of A fans at the airport that he committed to the U of A. This is an interesting one right here. So he's about seeing him catching the ball. He's 6'3", 205 pounds. Get a load of this. They're going to start him at receiver, but they also believe that he could be a DB or a defensive end because of his frame. His speed is out. His speed is insane. This is the epitome of the type of kid that you go ahead and you recruit and you find out a position for him later. He was somebody that the U of A staff had prioritized very early on. Another one with a lot of really good offers to him. And I would imagine there's going to be an opening spot, obviously, for T-Mac, with T-Mac leaving at the end of this year. This is another one, guys, Brad, that fits very well in with what Arizona wants to do. I find him very intriguing, and talking with a couple people, he's probably going to skyrocket up these rankings at their next ranking.
Yeah, and he gets knocked a little bit because he doesn't have that one position, but that's why he's perfect for Arizona. You look at it, Arizona's going to recruit, a couple different things, guys with position flexibility, or guys who don't have the measurables, maybe from a speed aspect or something, who play their position very well. This kid can play 3, who knows, maybe 4 positions, and that's going to make him valuable to Arizona.
He's going to continue to grow too. And I think that's probably what Arizona's waiting to see is, what kind of growth is he going to have heading into next year? How big is he going to get? What's his potential? Because if he continues to grow, I mean, he's 6'4" now. I mean, hell, and he's only 17. So you would assume that he's going to grow maybe even another couple inches before all is said and done. So again, the versatility, like Brad said, is paramount for Arizona to be able to pick and choose exactly where they think he would be best suited at. Obviously in conjunction with what the kid would like to do as well, because that's important today with the transfer portal. So he looks like he would be a prime wide receiver right now, but I certainly could see a scenario where if he just looks like he would be a natural filler in his body, how they would maybe move and consider him to go to the secondary or even defensive end. I could see that.
What I like about Texas as well is that you can get a kid that's not even in the top 100 in Texas in a rating, and he can still turn out to be an NFL player. And that there's a couple states like that, Texas, California, Florida, where it's very much like that. I mean, Brad, look back at the Mike Stoops era, and, we could talk Tomey before that, but you look at some of the players that he was able to bring in. And Earl Mitchell spent 10 years in the NFL. Mike Thomas, obviously. And even before that, John Makovic even brought in pros from Texas. a Cindric Steptoe, a Trevin Wade, players like that. I mean, you're able to, these were guys, 2-star Wade, and as his Twitter handle is, these are guys that, turned out to be awesome players. I am very excited about this. I also give Justin Spears and Saul Bookman much credit for telling Rich Rod that you might want to actually look at that state a couple doors over.
Feels like it should be a little obvious, but
Well, yeah, someone once told me they were talking, and no disrespect to Adam Hall, but that there's 5 Adam Halls in Texas and no one's recruiting them because they don't know about them, or in Dallas. Here, the kids, 98% of your D1 prospects are in 2 cities. And in Texas, they're all over the state. And sometimes they don't even get out of their county to go to camps and combines.
Right. And that's what's exciting about it again. And the other thing, too, that I think we need to look at when we're talking about this is I think we're starting to see a little bit of a recruiting template that's starting to – Arizona is going to very much try to hit Northern California and the Southern California when they can, and Texas. I'm totally cool with that. Coaches always end up with a template. They always end up with places that they prefer. You've obviously got a quarterback in Robert McDaniel already, high 3-star kid out of California, a borderline 4-star tight end out of Northern California as well. Now you start dipping into Texas. I think that's what they're going to do. And Brennan, this is where I think it's also exciting here, guys. Brennan's got a little bit of that. I think you just give him 3 stars. I mean, listen, like you talked about, Saul, when you're at San Jose State, you've got to be able to develop players. You've got to be able to do certain things. And Brennan, I think, has done a pretty good job of doing that. I'm excited to see what he can do with some high 3-star kids on a consistent basis.
So am I. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know where ultimately this is all going to land and how we're going to feel about Brennan, but I do feel good about what it feels like. He knows exactly what his own identity is as a coach and what he excels at, and the things that he's weak at. Maybe he filled out his roster with coaches that can help kind of offset that. And that's what good coaches do. That's what good leaders do. They know what their own weaknesses are, and they try to find people that are better at that than they are. And I think when you're looking at, Texas is so massive, and so is California, that you need to have a good, proper plan of attack. And I think you're seeing that with this coaching staff. They know exactly what areas they would like to pinpoint, target, and they're executing it.
Yes. And here's where I think, Joseph, I don't totally agree with this right here. I believe that if you're a very good developer of talent and you have an eye for talent, you can do that. I'm going to use a perfect example here. Somebody that Saul Bookman is very familiar with. I grew up watching this one, and I know that Brad Allis can attest to this. Bill Snyder. Now, I do think that Bill Snyder is I think Bill Snyder is one of the handful of best coaches ever. Bill Snyder built a top 10 program off JUCOs, 2- and 3-star kids. I mean, and you look at Dick Tomey's best teams as well. The team that finished in 1998, there were 17 NFL players on there. Guess what? There was about 13 of them that were not super highly rated. It's about the coach and about being able to develop. I don't necessarily agree with that, Joseph, even though you're the man.
But it's also about knowing what your identity is. Right. If you know what system you run, you can identify players a little easier that would be able to plug into your system, develop over the course of 1, 2, 3 years. Today it's now 1 or 2 years, and they can become like high-level prospects and players. If you don't know what the hell you're doing, then it doesn't matter what 3 stars or 1 stars or 2 stars you get. If you develop them, they might be good athletes, but they might not be a good fit for your system, and your team might not have success because of it. So that's what I think Brennan knows what he wants to do out there in this program, and that's why this will be effective if done right.
Mike, you said the key 3 letters, NFL. Years ago, I disagreed with you when you talked about needing NFL players. I said, no, you just need good. It's been proven wrong. You have to have NFL players. Now, where those NFL players come from is the key. And we can just look at Rich Rod. He had a bunch of 4 stars come in, and none of them were good.
Right.
He had a bunch of 3-star guys who played very well, and they were excellent at times and got to the NFL. And now we're seeing more guys starting to get to the NFL, and that's been the key. You have to have NFL talent, whether they're 1-star, 2-star, 5-star. They just got to be NFL guys.
Yes, agreed. Now, Joseph, I agree with you entirely. Joseph is saying, point is, we need some T-Max, some Price Hawks, some Speedies. Agreed. But you can still build. And like Glenn says, Glenn, by the way, big ASU fan, Glenn, that has been joining the show. Glenn, look at Utah. This was going to be my next example. Kyle Whittingham Kyle Whittingham has built a top 15 program, and you can go back the last 15 years, Saul, and guess what? Use 24/7, use Rivals, use whatever you want to, and you are going to see a staff that is bringing in a top 45 level class each year. But guess what? It works because they know what they're doing.
Exactly. They know what their identity is. Here's a perfect example. This is not college sports, but if you don't have an identity, it doesn't matter how great your players are, you probably aren't going to get the results that you want. Look at the Phoenix Suns as a prime example, a team that has all the talent in the world, but they didn't have an identity as a program, and everything fell apart when it mattered most. Hopefully this is going to be the opposite of that in terms of what Brennan is building here. So I'm excited to see what the following results are. Obviously they got another recruit that committed this morning. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to talk about, he actually committed yesterday, but we talked about him. Great. But no, you're good. You're good. Tuchek out of a very good name. Sounds like a rapper. Tuchek out of Long Beach Milliken. Another one, though. I like this. 6'2", 190. Another guy that had some offers. He's been quietly committed for about a month now, but he is another one, Brad. I like it. And again, another top 100 California kid that is now 4, if you're keeping track.
Yeah, and what's more important is, from all indications, some of the rumblings, Dwayne Aquina loves him. And if Dwayne Aquina loves him, that's good enough for me. I mean, that's really enough of a stamp of approval. Again, I don't care if he's a 5-star, 1-star, whatever. Get me a Dwayne Aquina guy.
For what you can see, he's a pretty aggressive cornerback. He likes to put his hands on guys. He's a headhunter. I kind of like that about football players. I want them to lay dudes out. So he did that plenty of times last year in California. We also took him from the likes of UW, ASU, so on and so forth, which is also just another feather in the cap. So I'll take it.
And what's cool about it too is those were committable offers. A lot of times these kids get offers and they report them because they got them as like a freshman or a sophomore, and you didn't really hear about them. All of those schools would have taken them. We very much like that. You know, another underrated part about getting into Texas, guys, that I don't think a lot of people are really talking enough about?
Whataburger?
Circle K.
Oh, Circle K. Yeah. Do
you know how many Circle Ks there are in Texas, my friend? There's a Circle K Finder. And I've gone on this.
Can I guess?
What's that?
Can I guess? Do you have the number?
I do not have the number, but I know it's well over 200.
Damn. I was going to say 100. Okay.
Well over 200 Circle Ks in Texas, my friend. That is why, another reason why we've been sleeping on this, and we've not given this enough due. By the way, all the shout outs to people at Circle K in Ireland, Germany, you name it. But all these people, here's what you know. Join the Inner Circle for free, just like Saul Bookman did, just like Brad Allis did, by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. Brad, did you go to Circle K yesterday?
Yes.
What'd you get?
Gatorade and water for baseball practice.
There you go. Saul Bookman, when did you go to Circle K?
I just got gas.
All right. Well, either way, you know what? It's for
every
everybody.
Monday is gas day.
Yes, exactly. Check it out. Circle K, my friends. All kinds of really, really good stuff. And I think another thing that we need to talk about, too, with Texas is Jedd Fisch said another thing. I keep going back to quote Jedd Fisch, but I think he makes some pretty good points because, honestly, Jedd Fisch did a really good job of building a program. I don't like how he left, but he did a really good job of overhauling this. He said the one thing, too, that you got to be able to find with linemen, and a couple people have mentioned this, you got to go with, so he says, when you look at, he says, we're probably not going to be able to get into Alabama and Louisiana and get, the high fives, the 4 and 5-star kids. He says, you got to know your limitations. He says, but there are 2 templates, and he said that he goes by. Samoans, Polynesians, because they're generally bigger players. He talked about this. You look at the line of Jonas Sabanea, Wendell Moy. One guy was committed to Morgan State. The other one was committed to wasn't even committed. Those guys both turned out to be really, really good. And he said, and then you try to find 5-6 kids in the South that might have been a little bit underrated because maybe they didn't have the grades. Maybe they were late to football. Maybe they're not in condition. And he said states like Texas are those type of places that you look. So again, I think that's where you're going to find a lot of these linemen, guys. I really do.
Yeah, it's a good thought process, and it seems clear to me that Brennan understands. Like again, I think the thing with Rich Rod is I feel like he didn't think that he could recruit Texas to the level that he would have liked. And it's so like it could be overwhelming to try and comb Texas to find these, these under the radar kids, because like you said, Mike, it's not like they're all playing in like one or two cities. Right. They're all over the place. They're even in the outskirts. You go to Midland, Texas, for crying out loud, and Odessa and Tyler and Allen. Like they're not large cities, and so the time and effort that it's going to take to get into those spaces to learn about these kids, find out what these kids are all about, and then watch them play and all the camps and stuff like that go along with that can be overwhelming. But if you have a good plan, and if you have a couple people that are familiar with the space and where they can cut corners and really be more efficient with their time, then the better you're going to be. And I think that's what Brennan has.
You also have the new selling point, and that is you're going into the state 2-3 times a year to play football games. And where would you like to live in the winter? Waco, Texas, Lubbock, Texas, or Tucson, Arizona. And I think this is going to be an advantage if Dillingham can get it cranked up too. I mean, I hate to give credit, but Tempe's a better place to live than Lubbock, Texas. And again, I could see UCF making some inroads too. But, there's the advantage now that you didn't have when you were in the Pac-12, because you might get a game every 2 or 3 years.
Right, exactly. And one thing that Dick Tomey was really good at too was that he was able to get it. He was resourceful, Brad. He was able to bring in our guy Kelvin Efon from the basketball team from Texas, a Yusuf Scott, a Frank Middleton, JUCO kid out of Texas as well. You got to be resourceful. And I think people look at the term resourceful and they think that that's like some negative connotation. Listen, when you're not at a school that recruits itself, when you're at USC, guess what? You should be good. You're able to get players that are just going to come to you. In a place like in Arizona, at an ASU, you got to be more resourceful. And there's nothing really wrong with that. That's part of the coaching gig. And you see some of these people like Kyle Whittingham. Let's be honest. Kyle Whittingham could go to a lot of different places if he wanted to at this point in the game with his success. He likes it. There is a template in there. There's a blueprint, and I like being able to see it. So we will find out. But being resourceful is not a bad thing, fellas. It's not a bad thing at all.
It's not a bad thing at all. Again, if you know what you're about, then it's going to be much easier for you. And these guys are showing that they know exactly what kind of program they're trying to build and who they can identify to do it. And for us, Mike, let's chat for a second. Pro Football Focus has given us a lot of love in terms of like the types of players that we're bringing in, and the transfer portal obviously being one of those, and the top running backs in the country. They put out their list. Jonah Coleman, the only one that beat us out, former Arizona Wildcat running back that's at UW. But in terms of transfer running backs, obviously Ja'Cory Merritt and then Quali Conley, very great prospects, top 3 in the country in terms of their grades. But that's not all, Mike. They also gave us some love with our secondary, and they rated us one of the top 10 secondaries in the country. Right. So Pro Football Focus, man, giving the Wildcats a lot of love for what they've been able to do this offseason.
I love the secondary. I think let's work backwards from there, guys. I love the secondary. Listen, you got 3 safeties that I think would start for about anybody. I tried telling Totri this. He didn't. He wasn't trying to have any of it. But you got 3 safeties that are absolutely fantastic. Gunnar Maldonado, Gunnar Maldonado, Dalton Johnson, who's probably the best out of both of them. And then you've also got Genesis Smith out of Chandler. So again, check out all of those guys are all good. You got Takario Davis. And Brad, there's one question mark at that other cornerback spot. But when you got Dwayne Aquina in there, I'm going to trust him to be able to figure that one out because he's probably the best defensive backs coach of all time.
Yeah, they've tried to stockpile some guys and bring some bodies in who can compete. And we'll see how they scheme around guys' strengths and weaknesses. And that's what Aquina has done, especially as a DB's coach. I know he doesn't have a ton of experience as a DC, but there's few who have ever been better at coaching DBs in any level of football.
You even left somebody out, Mike. You left somebody out of the secondary.
Owen Goss?
Nope. Started last year. No, he's a senior this year from Millennium High School up here in the Valley.
Oh, Trayden Stukes. Duh, yeah. My fault. Hello. I apologize.
You can't do trading like that. Come on, man.
Nickelback. Yes, absolutely. I do apologize. Very good call there, Saul Bookman. Very good call. Salute. That is why you're the boss.
That's my guy, the captain. Let's go, trading.
Yes, exactly. Millennium High School, also where Duron Holmes from Dayton went as well. And Cam Holmes, who we're going to be watching at Section 7, his little brother. But again, I love the secondary. I think the secondary is the strength of the defense. I also think there's this misnomer, fellas, that, oh, the defense is just going to be terrible. Here, the defense has a lot of really good pieces back. And honestly, I've got a lot of faith. I got a lot of faith, Brad, in what Dwayne Akina can do. I grew up watching the man. I think that with this secondary, listen, at linebacker, you got Jacob Manu, but you got to get some other players. I think the front four is going to be fine. I like the defense. I think the defense is going to be fine.
It all comes down to the front four to me. I think there's enough depth at linebacker, maybe unproven, but there's depth. If those big linemen are ready to come in and play, they'll be fine. If not, they're in some trouble.
All right. Saul, I got another question for you.
Sure,
Before we
Mike.
get to running backs, what can you tell me about OGs?
It's not for the running backs. I know that. You definitely don't want to take any OGs before you play. But listen, OGs for the rest of us can make any experience a little bit better. You should not rely on OGs to make your experience better, but it is a nice enhancement if you would like to partake. Brad, keep it down. Anyway, OGs, the best edible in the game. Go to ogsbrands.com. You can find the closest dispensary to you. Walk in there, get your OGs. Sometimes they even have some deals, some BOGO deals, which is very rare. But when they do come around, you'll see that the OGs are completely gone from the shelves. You can get the sativas, the indicas, the RSOs. Everything's fantastic. You can't go wrong. OGs, the vegan gummy, the clementine flavor. Again, mega gummy, awesome, 10 milligrams. You can't go wrong. They even have the microdoses if you're trying to get into it at a smaller level and just kind of, build up your stamina, if you will, because, listen, you don't want to throw a 100 milligram gummy in your mouth because you will be seeing things that don't exist. So you got to crawl before you walk, try the 3 milligram gummies and work your way up and enjoy today. Remember, you must be over the age of 21 and you must enjoy responsibly.
All right, now let's talk this running backs room because, Saul, you brought that up. If we could bring this up again, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt here. We broke this story, by the way, on Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Very, very cool story about Brad was having some issues, so see you, Brad. But with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I think that, listen, it's a bizarre story. It's a very, very unique story where, he got another year. And I'll tell you this, Saul, talking to some people, this kid, they believe, has an NFL future to him. I would not at all be surprised if this running back's room, from a statistical perspective, does not take any kind of real decline, I guess. And that's not a diss. I'm not one of those people. I hate people that are like, oh, Jonah Coleman, he sucked anyways. We didn't want him. That's not the case. The kid's really, really good, obviously. But, Saul, I'm also at the point now, too, with these running backs where I do think that I think this is going to be a strength of the team. I really do.
I hope you're right. I'm going to wait to see how this all, plays out. Obviously, with kids in different programs, you just gotta kind of at least see a game to get a better feel for what they're really going to bring to the table. Because last year's running back room was fantastic. There's no way to go about it. You had elite players in a variety of different ways that had different skill sets, and they all complemented each other very, very well, and really made that offense hum. Because you never really had to worry about going 3 and out. You just continue to run the clock and move the ball down the field and score at a high clip. So you hope that that's what this team's going to do. Obviously, you got some versatility there. With Merritt in the fold, that's going to help a big deal because he's a great back. He's also very physical. He's elusive. He's got all the skills that are all the traits that you need. Then you accompany him with the couple others and Speedy Luke and stuff. So I'm excited, but I always have tempered expectations until I see at least one game before I.
You got to see it. No, I totally agree with that. You got to be able to see it. Now, I will say this. Anthony Totri hopping in here as well. Totri still believes that Jaden Rashada is better than Noah Fafita. He is wrong.
My God. Eric Ruby is he's making me dizzy. The screen switching.
Yes, exactly.
And Totri's in the back. I don't know what he's doing. He can come out here and talk shit if he wants.
Yeah, I mean, you can hop in here if you want, but again, that's kind of where it's at. Now, let's move to a little bit of Arizona basketball. I want to talk about the power forward position, Saul Bookman. All right, here's the thing with Arizona. With Arizona, think about all throughout during Tommy Lloyd's entire tenure, what has been the one position where you're like, man, that's probably been a strength of the team?
Probably power forward.
Probably power forward, and they are dramatically different players. You look at an Azuolas Tubelis, scorer, not necessarily the best defender in the world, pretty savvy from a passing perspective, good dude. Then you look at Keyshawn Johnson, didn't really have those kind of qualities, a defender, a pretty good open 3-point shooter, an all-conference defensive guy. Yeah. That is something that I think this coaching staff has very, very has a good vibe on. Saul, what do you think about that? Then we're going to talk about Trey Townsend here in a second.
Yeah, no, I love that point that you brought up when we were talking before the show about power forwards. When you look at the team, I feel like Tommy Lloyd feels like the power forward position gives him the most flexibility and the least expectation, if you will. Right. Because there's certain requirements for the other positions that he just needs out of those positions. You know, your point guard and your center, they got to be the anchors of the team. And then your shooting guards and your small forward, they got to be, solid defenders, but also they got to be able to score. A power forward can give you a little bit of versatility both ways, as we've seen with these last two players. And I think Tommy Lloyd's kind of identified that could be, you get the right power forward in the mix and it can make a world of difference.
What's interesting too about the power forward position is you can get guys that are athletic and that are more of a facilitator. You can also get guys that can defend a multitude of positions. You can also get guys that can shoot the three. You can get guys that that can finish around the rim. It's a very versatile position. Yeah. And I think you're going to see that this year with Trey Townsend. Trey Townsend coming in was the Horizon League Conference Player of the Year at obviously. And you saw him, what he was able to do in the tournament for Oakland. He dropped 31 and 13 on North Carolina State, which made the Final Four, 17 and 11. But the other thing that is very appealing about him is his assist numbers. Averaged almost 4 assists per game. And I will say this, I would not be surprised if he challenges for the team lead in assists. That is something from a facilitator perspective that I think they're going to see a lot of. And honestly, I would not be at all surprised if this guy flirts with about 4.5 assists per game. This is going to be the next one, I think. In my opinion, I think you're going to see a all-conference type power forward pretty much every year that Tommy Lloyd's here. And if there's not, then I think that probably something went wrong along the way.
I mean, that's a high bar in the Big 12 with as many good teams as there are. So, if we miss one year, I'm not gonna panic. But yeah, I get your point for sure. Listen, that's the pitch to Trey Townsend to come here is like, listen, we're going to put the ball in your hands. You're going to have opportunities to score. You're going to have opportunities to be a playmaker. You're going to have opportunities to play at a high level with a high program and show off your skills and try to get yourself to the NBA. That's the pitch. And if you're Trey Townsend, you'd be a fool not to come to Arizona and do that. He's got good players around him. He's going to be able to have the creative freedom to a certain degree within the scheme of the offense to be able to do what he wants to do. And that's very appealing. So if you're Arizona, putting the ball in his hands is not a bad idea. It's going to benefit us ultimately anyway.
Yes, absolutely. And there's something to be said too about, I get people that are like, oh, we only shot 47% from the field. Listen, when you're the main man on a team, Saul Bookman, you were one of the main men playing basketball when you were growing up.
No.
But it is different. It's different when you're going into a game against Kentucky and they're like, all right, well, that's the dude down low. That's the best player. That's the conference player of the year. Or North Carolina State. When you got 2 or 3 guys hanging on you, it's going to be different. And you look at his games, whether it was against Xavier, whether it was against Illinois, whether it was against, obviously the 2 teams we just mentioned. When he played big time competition, he almost always got that 17 and 11, that 18 and 12 with a couple assists. That's something that you either have or you don't. We've seen a lot of guys that, you can beat up on UM Meredith or UM Methodist, whatever, some school. That's still not a school either, but some school in the SUNY conference. How about that?
Okay.
That always amuses me. But go ahead, Saul Bookman.
No, I was gonna say I'll say this to your point. It was much harder for me growing up playing against teams that we know we should just easily beat than it was to play against top tier competition, because typically when you were playing the lesser teams, they always threw some weird janky shit at you, and you weren't really prepared for it because you just they had to, because that was the only way that they could try to compete, is by throwing weird ass things at you that you hadn't seen. So to his defense, playing in that league, in the Horizon League, and being the center of attention for that team, plus they had that outside shooter too, that 3-point shooter that was really ridiculous in the tournament as well. Those two guys were the key guys for those guys, for those teams. So they would get double, triple teams sometimes. Sometimes they'd full court press, sometimes they wouldn't. When you're playing at Arizona, teams don't have the luxury to just focus on one or two guys. Your squad is always deep. You're always going to go 7 or 8 deep. It's not like, what they have at ASU when they only have like 1 or 2 guys that can actually score and everybody else misses layups, right? So like you are a bona fide player when you come to Arizona, and you can spread the wealth. So the focus is not as weird or as intense on you as it normally would be.
What I also like, too, is that Lloyd has shown, too, that he can get players to adapt to different styles. Look at what Keyshawn Johnson was when he was at San Diego State. He was basically just kind of a junkyard dog. 7 points, 5 rebounds. And again, it's not like that's a bad thing. I mean, you need that role. But Tommy Lloyd told him, listen, you come here and you will probably you're going to become a better NBA prospect. I can't guarantee anything. But we're also going to be able to let people show that you can do more than just get the hustle, the bike knee pads, elbows, and stuff. That you're going to be able to get some of that. And look at Keyshawn Johnson now is going to be drafted. He wasn't on any draft boards at this time last year, obviously. He's going to be drafted as possibly a 3-and-D type guy, Saul. And that was not anything that was in the cards at this time last year. So Lloyd knows what he's doing. And I think he's also got a very good knack for being able to find out what is part of their skill set they haven't been able to show necessarily yet. I think you're going to see that with Trey Townsend. Dude gets it when he's talking about transfer, especially big men.
Oh yeah, 1,000,000%. Keyshawn Johnson is a fantastic example of why you come to U of A, is because, again, like you said, San Diego State got all the way to the national championship, lost to UConn, but you didn't really know who he was. He was one of 8 other guys that averaged 7 and 5. But he comes here, and again, his development through this system over the course of the year, you saw him get more and more and more comfortable. You got to see his athleticism. You got to see his defensive skills in a different kind of way, not just a pack in kind of way. And his 3-point shooting was much improved from where it had been, and that's exactly what you want to see. So he improved his offensive stock. His defensive stock was always there. He's going to make an NBA team very, very happy. I promise you that. If he finds his way onto any NBA roster, he feels like a Miami Heat type of player.
He feels like a Heat player.
He feels like a Heat culture type of dude.
Yes.
So yeah, I when you're looking at Trey Townsend, now Trey doesn't struggle so much on the offensive side. The defensive side is where he's going to have to improve a little bit. So it's kind of opposite for him. Can he do that? I'm interested to see.
I'm interested to see too. I'm also interested to see too. I like guys that can get buckets. When the going gets tough in the NCAA tournament, listen, things slow down. Not everybody is UConn where you're just like 25 points better than everybody else. Things start to slow down to a certain degree, and you got to have some guys who can get buckets. We saw that with Jaden Bradley when Arizona played Clemson. It just helps. I think Trey Townsend is hopefully going to be that guy. But Saul Bookman, the BetMGM Sportsbook app, I got something for you. They have been behind. They are the best there is, but they have been behind on Arizona the last couple of years in football, my friends. The over-unders have not been where they were supposed to be. 2.5, Arizona got 5. Last year, 5, Arizona got 10. Right now, it is at 7.5, my friend.
Oh, it's 7.5.
Yep. I'd say that you should go to the BetMGM Sportsbook and enter code PHNX and get in on this extravaganza. I am
eight wins seems like a pretty good bet.
I would say that as well. But here's all you got to do. You got to sign up for BetMGM and use bonus code PHNX. That's a big part of all this, everybody. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the BetMGM Sportsbook mobile app for at least $10. You'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if the bet loses. Check out the show notes for details. By the way, let's hear Shane Diefenbach with the disclaimer.
Bets expire in 7 days. One new customer offer only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus only. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Bonus bets are non-withdrawable. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, North Carolina, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
What's the most you've ever won on the BetMGM Sportsbook app, Saul Bookman?
600.
Nice. Very good. So listen to Saul Bookman when he is talking about these things. And Arizona basketball. By the way, another one that's very fascinating. So if you look at betting odds, very interesting. 5 of the top 11 are, for college basketball, are in the Big 12. I would be curious, honestly, joking aside, I would be curious if that's ever happened before. Like, I was thinking about it. Think when we were growing up and like you had the old Big East where you had maybe a UConn, a Syracuse, a Georgetown every now and then, or the ACC.
The ACC might have been close.
Right.
Because you had Duke, North Carolina. At that time in the 90s, Wake Forest was there. Because they had some really good players.
Yep.
Not in Maryland. Maryland was another one that was really good at that time. So that's 4.
Yeah.
I think of another one.
I was thinking about it maybe because those were the 2 that I thought about, because then the other ones were kind of like you had a lot of Clemsons and Virginias and North Carolina States in there that you're not really. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to look that up, but I would be very curious if that's actually ever even happened before. 5 of the top 11. So something to certainly keep in mind. ASU is not one of those, or Glenn. So we will certainly keep that one in mind. But so the power forward, though, I wanted to be able to talk quite a bit about that, but I wanted to circle back here to football here before we sign off. Saul, we've been saying this from day one. A lot of people keep saying, they're like, well, I'm not happy with the recruiting. I keep telling people this. Listen, when you're a new coach, you have to have, unless you have a massive name where people are just going to come to you because of your name or a massive resume, it takes time to be able to build those connections. It just does. You look at Kenny Dillingham. You look at some of these other guys. I mean, he's recruiting really well right now. It took him time to be able to get those connections. He didn't just come in and do that with the first class. Brent Brennan, the same way. I always tell people you'll know generally by their second or third class what kind of recruiter, what kind of developer they are. It's impossible to tell somebody in their first 4 months, well, you're not getting these players. I always preach patience in this, Saul Bookman.
Yeah, agreed. Being here in the Valley and watching Kenny Dillingham kind of work and go about his process. I've learned quite a bit in realizing that there's not only the work ethic that needs to be involved, but you have to have a solid plan and a solid staff around you. And I think, listen, when you get hired as a coach in January, and you have to put your staff together, get out there, recruit, touch base with all the recruits that you have, also hold on to all the players that are currently in your system. That's a lot. That's a lot in a short amount of time, in like 30 days. And Brent Brennan did as good as you could possibly hope in that regard. The first order was to keep as many players here as possible.
Right.
F the recruiting.
Right.
You got to focus on what you have because it's a talented squad. He did that for the most part. He only lost a couple guys. That's fine. But he kept that. And then you move over to the recruiting, which he's currently working on. His whole staff is working on very, very hard, by the way. And they're gonna get results. They are already starting to get results. Now, they're not going to be the 4 or 5 stars. And I think that's where we kind of lose perspective as Arizona fans, I think, is we always want to equate football recruiting to basketball recruiting, and it's just not the same. Like, we're not going to get the 4 and 5 stars that we get in basketball in the football side yet. Right. Now, you have another great year this year. Guess what? That's probably going to change because you just piggybacked off of beating Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl. And if you get to the CFP this year, all bets are off, man. This is a program on the rise. So you got to take advantage of this year for sure.
Isn't that the ultimate recruiting success, though, Saul? Honestly, being able to keep all those players. Noah Fifita and T-Mac could have made multi-millions going to other places. They could have made more money going to other places. Jacob Manu, Jonas Savanea, Takario Davis. I mean, Takario Davis, I think, is the best example. Takario Davis basically kept his name in the transfer portal and said, all right, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to see how this all plays out. And when the day came, he withdrew his name. So I think that's the ultimate recruiting tool right there. Because like you said, make a great point. You had to focus on what was on the ground immediately here because you had a lot of screw recruiting for a second. Like you said, you've got to be able to look at these players and say, I need these guys for next year, not 3 years down the road.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I like how everything's unfolding right now. I think you're starting to see the recruits come in for next year. There's some progress being made there. And again, like I get the recruiting boards and all this other stuff and blah, 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 blah. But we just threw out 2 other examples of coaches that could give 2 shits about rankings and recruiting, and Kyle Whittingham and then Bill Snyder. Like neither of those guys give a damn about that stuff. They just know what their program's all about and what kind of player they want in their program to be able to build around. And I'm hoping that that's what Brent Brennan is really focused on.
Did I ever tell you when I shook Bill Snyder's hand?
No.
1997, my friend. I shook Bill Snyder's hand. It was either 96 or 97. They were playing Nebraska. But want to know the reason that I really remember it is his hearing aid kept going off. He had a hearing aid and it kept making, like when it makes the loud noise. It was funny. So he's trying to turn it down. And then he says, pardon me for a second. And then it kept going off again. It was,
So here's my Bill Snyder story, which was really cool. When I was there working in the athletic department at K-State, we had it was a practice scrimmage, and then it was followed up by a signing. Everybody can line up to get autographs. There was probably about 20,000 people there to watch this little short scrimmage. It was like the red and purple or the white and purple game or whatever. But it was like maybe 2 weeks before the season started. So it was a light scrimmage. It wasn't like crazy.
Right.
Anyway, so we're all done. About 10,000 people leave. There's probably 10,000 people still there. And they're all lined up all around the football field, on the field, and a big ass, it probably went around the football field 4 or 5 times to get an autograph from Bill Snyder. And he sat there and he signed. And we had 1 hour on the clock. And that hour went up and there was probably still at least, 500 people there. And there was an announcement that came on the loud screen. And it was just like, folks, I'm sorry, but that's the end of the signing. We apologize if you weren't able to get in front of your favorite player or coach, but come back next time, blah, 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 blah. Bill Snyder put up both of his hands and said, don't go anywhere, folks. And he sat back down and he continued to sign until we were there for maybe another 2 hours, signed every single person, took pictures with everybody. You just don't see that kind of stuff anymore, man. He was a legend for a reason.
Yeah, he was a legend for a reason. It's cool things like that too, that go beyond sports, where you can really tell somebody's character. You can really tell just kind of how they're grounded and whatnot. It was just, I love hearing stuff like that.
Yeah, the whole thing, he built that program, and the thing is, it's just like Lute. When he built Arizona basketball, he unknowingly built this community that was just untouched, and now we revere it. We love it. It's what we are. It's in our DNA, and that's what K-State was all about. And they always talk about family at K-State. You'll see this year, when you watch them play, it's always about family, and that environment is second to none. You're going to see it, Mike. It's 67,000 people in a town that doesn't even have 20,000 people there. It's going to be awesome, and that's what I'm hoping that we're going to end up building here in Tucson, and having just massive crowds every single game, no matter what, just killing it for our Wildcats, man. That's what this is all about.
One thing that is also about family is the Desert Financial Credit Union, Saul Bookman.
It's true.
This is very true. Now, how many places do you know that actually want to give you money by opening an account? I know next to none.
Yeah, I don't know very many at all.
Yeah, all right. Here's the deal, though. When you open this free checking account online, you can get 200 bonuses. Just get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200 today. Again, a lot of people are doing this. I've actually had multiple people that said it was nice getting that extra 200 in there. Again, I've been to many different places. I have not had anybody, Saul, that was like, hey, guess what? Here's a couple. Here, do the kids call them stacks? Is a 100 is 100 a stack?
I don't believe so. Eric?
I believe 1,000 is a stack.
Oh,
is it?
I think. I don't think a stack is 100.
What is a rack?
That is 1,000. A rack is 1,000
rack
for
is
sure.
1,000. Stacks is just stacks of money.
Oh, all right. Well, either way, they're offering you 200 so you can get closer to that rack. Saul Bookman. So you can be able to check it out, though.
Pause.
Yes. Very, very good. Check out the Desert Financial Credit Union, though. Very, very good. 10K is a band. 100 is a C note. Thank you, Glenn. Very much appreciate this. All right. Now, enough of my street talk. By the way, Erica L. Day referred to him as Nippy Hustle. Nippy Hustle. We do not like this, Saul. Not good. We went like this. But on that note, though, what do you got? What does the boss got going on at PHNX? I know you got some stuff going on this week.
Yeah, this week we got chicken and pickle on Thursday, a little trivia. Then so you see 7 to 9 p.m. Come out. Like, it's so much fun over there at Chicken and Pickle. You're going to have a great time. The food is fantastic. You can't go wrong. And even afterwards, if you want to stick around, play a little pickleball, that's fun too. So it's going to be a good night out there. It's indoors, so you don't worry about the heat. You're good. We got you taken care of. That's going to be fun. And then moving forward, obviously, we got the Cardinals have got stuff going on. Mercury got stuff going on. Cardinals got a Miami trip. Mercury got another takeover in August. When the schedule comes out, Suns will be putting some things together. So a lot of good things. And obviously, Mike, we're working on things that we're going to do for U of A as well as we move forward. So hopefully we'll have a takeover of sorts, either in football or basketball, but I would like to put a trip together. I think a trip together would be awesome. So
I agree.
We kind of dropped the ball this year, Mike. And I'm going to say that because I didn't realize we were playing in Florida at Central Florida this year. And Central Florida, as you know, is in Orlando. Right. And Orlando's just happens to be one of the favorite places for the Bookman household to go because of Disney World.
Disney World, yes, exactly. Not to be mistaken with Disneyland. So no better time to become PHNX diehard. By the way, all kinds of good stuff, all kinds of good merchandise as well.
And our Discord is growing. We've added some new members over the last couple of weeks, so that's been pretty dope.
Is growing very, very. I wake up to many Discord messages now, which is very, very nice. But
and the Wildcats jump in the ASU Discord quite a bit as well.
They do. We got to give that Glenn.
The thing that's funny about that is that every time we jump in the Discord, we typically jump in respectfully because we know it's their space, and immediately we get attacked. Yeah, it's like, okay, all right.
But guess what, Saul? We have broad shoulders around here, thick skin, scales, so they're hanging off the skin like an alligator. But all right, for the great Saul Bookman, what do you got going on, real quick, Saul? I know you guys got a show going on tonight, or 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock, PHNX Suns. I won't be on it today, but PHNX Suns, 3 o'clock. They're going to talk about Devin Booker trades. Don't shoot us. It's just all make-believe. We don't think he should be traded, nor do we think he will be traded. So just chill. It's just an exercise. Don't shoot us.
All right. For the great Saul Bookman, the boss, Saul Bookman, Eric Ruby, the precocious Eric Ruby behind the scenes. Very much appreciate all of you. We're going to do a lot of sections.
Remember, it's a Waffle House, not North Korea.
Oh, very, very. There's a lot of times I've been confused by this as well. What's the capital of North Korea? Quick.
I don't know. Do you?
Pyongyang.
Yeah, I was going to say starts with the P. Yeah.
Pyongyang.
Pyongyang. Wow. Have you ever seen that aerial photo of North Korea?
Yes.
Where it's great. It's where basically like
it's great.
No, it's not great. But
Mike, you are truly a one-of-one human being, man.
No, it's wild though. You've got this. So you've got all these countries like China, Japan, South Korea, and they're all lit up by lights. And there's just this circle of darkness. And that's North Korea because there's no electricity or anything there. Check it out. I don't know why I even brought that up, but yes, check it out sometime.
He's doing it like an ad read. He's doing it like, and make sure you look at that picture of North Korea. Promo code PHNX.
Moving right along.
Do you know what the demilitarized zone is between South Korea and North Korea? You know what it's called, right?
No.
Saul Bookman. The 38th parallel.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
All right. Pyongyang 38th parallel. Don't say you didn't learn anything today on this show.
You can't say North Korea too many times. Otherwise, we're going to get pinged and all of a sudden some funky shit's going to start happening.
You're going to get Pyongyang pinged. All right. Very much appreciate all of you guys, though. You guys are fantastic. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Section 7 Talk. Eric Ruby, Saul Bookman. I am merely Mike Luke. Appreciate you all. We'll be back with you. AZ Wildcats Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.